just before you do DMT, there's this funny kind of impression in the room, almost as though there is backwash from the event about to happen. You're caught in the psychic field of this event, and everything is moving faster and faster. This is like the Q phenomenon, and then you take the hit, and it's building up in your body, and your heart is pounding and everything, and then you break through to this place, and what it's like is, the first impression is of the first impression is of the sound of cellophane being crumpled, that crackling sound as if someone had just taken a bread wrapper. Yeah. Crackle that cellophane for us. It sounds like your body has just been wadded up and thrown into a corner, and now you're a radio signal, approximately 4 light seconds in diameter, spreading out through an alien universe. And the next impression is of a cheer. It's hurrah, welcome, welcome. And it's them, and they're waiting, and they can hardly wait. I mean, there's a moment when they're not on me, just a moment, and then they say, "You're here, we're glad to see you, why did you stay away so long?" And then they come toward me, and the main thing for me in the DMT thing is to struggle not to go into shock of wonder, basically. I mean, because there is a tendency, a strong tendency, and for the first few trips, I couldn't conquer it. I was a victim of it. I mean, I just go into this. And I would say, heart, okay. Breathing, okay. But I'm looking, and I can't believe my eyes, because I'm in some kind of domed place. And the impression, don't ask me why, but the impression is of being underground, even though it's a huge vaulted space and highly colored. And then, but what is, of course, riveting my attention are these beings. And they're small, and they're like, I've described them as machine elves. They seem partially machine-like and partially elf-like.
Well, hello. I know I cover a lot of topics that are, even for a channel that gets into things like flat earth and cosmology and conspiracies and all that, and I know sometimes I even include visuals that some people find questionable or even offensive or just disturbing, and if I've already been pushing the bar in that regard, then this video might just push it farther than ever before. But I don't know how else to do it, because it's all about visuals on this one. So a friend of the channel, I hate saying that though, just a friend, Casey, recently, I'm sure you just thought I forgot about this, but I really didn't, man. He emailed me, talking about this Google DeepMind thing, which I think I vaguely remember seeing it a couple years ago when it first came out, and people were looking at these weird pictures that it was spitting out, and it was very strange. And it is pretty disturbing. So he emailed me, and I didn't get back to him, so he went ahead and made his own video. I'm going to leave the link to that in the description, so go check it out. So I guess you're going to have to make more videos of this nature, Casey. Sorry about that, but I think that's actually pretty great, because, yeah, just in the short time that I've gotten to know him, definitely having been brought out of a lot of the New Age deception and brought back to Christ, and just an awesome brother in the Lord. I love this dude. He's a musician. I've actually used I think at least one of his songs in a video, and probably should use more. So yeah, great guy, and very interesting in this video that he made, where he's looking at all these different Google Deep Dream images that is sort of this weird project that Google came out with, collaborating humans and AI to make quote-unquote artwork, right? And it is pretty dang disturbing. But what I thought was really insightful was when he, after going through some examples, he then starts to talk about the correlation between what he sees in the Google Deep Dream imagery and the artwork of Alex Gray, who he was familiar with through being a fan of the band Tool. And indeed, Alex Gray and Tool have collaborated for a long time. So I'm going to play part of his video and then add my 2 cents at the end. So here he is.
Now, you're seeing this art. You're not art. It's not even art. This thing is just spitting this out. This is what it sees when it looks at our reality. It's seeing into the spirit realm. It's seeing into the demonic realm, into the realm of the fallen, or what some believe is the higher realm, which, you know, the powers that be, which, if you know, if you're watching this, you're probably somewhat aware. Now, this is artwork. For those of you who grew up in my generation, Tool is probably well known. I was a big Tool fan for a long time until and I still enjoy the music, I'll say. But at the same time, and they have this is their artist's work, Alex Gray. And I looked up some online. Some of this might not be, but most of it is. And either way, it looks, if one of them aren't his drawing, they look exactly, you know, they're either inspired by him, or these people are taking psychedelics, which we know they do, and they're seeing this and they don't understand what they're seeing, but the machine is spitting out the same images. Is it not? Is it not? Look, this is Alex Gray's work. I've noticed it on Tool art all my life, but I haven't ever thought, why does he put those eyes everywhere? Because he's seeing them, and you always know that the musicians in the band are, a couple of them at least, are well-known occultists, and we all know, at least now I know, Tool, the name Tool, the band name Tool. That's exactly what they are. They're tools. It's a tool. There's a cult following because they've been allowed to have a cult following because they are worshiping the beast. That's what's happening right here. The art is the same. It's the same thing. They're seeing the same thing. The structures, the faces, the eyes, the beings that aren't there, the crazy shapes. Look at this. This is the same thing. This is the same thing with the AI. This new robot mind that's was almost definitely using blockchain to, and has been since 2008, I believe, at the financial collapse. It was already advanced than the Sophia robot, and I believe that they're dumbing her down too when they show her to the public. That she is, and I shouldn't say she, that it is much. It can be much more human than it's acting. So they're doing it. You know, they're putting out a half a body with no arms, or sometimes a little robotic arm that has an obviously robotic hand or fingers or whatever. But that's just to make us not freak out. This is way more advanced than we even begin to imagine. I don't know whose art this is, but you see the little globes there. So here's some more Alex Gray. Look at all the eyes. Same thing. Repeat. Eyes, 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 eyes. So you get the point. This is a blasphemous image called cosmic. I'm not even going to say it. But, you know, here's a little cage Earth, which is about right, for the people who believe that still. We can know now, so there's no reason to, you know, most people have had a chance to know. If you reject it, that's not, you know, you've been given a chance, a choice to just look with your eyes. Just look. Take a look. Oh my God, this image is just creeping me out. I can't look at that. It makes me feel sick. We should probably say a prayer.
So I definitely think that's pretty fascinating that he kind of made that connection, specifically with the eyes. Indeed, it's really weird when you look at these deep dream pictures, why the AI supposedly is so just seems to have this predilection for combining faces in such a disturbing acid trip kind of way. And that's really kind of the whole point here, is that the correlations and the similarities to things that you see on LSD, or specifically what I was going to talk about here, DMT, is pretty uncanny and disturbing. And I don't think he's making too much of a leap here at all. And the really crazy thing is that while I had seen the still images that you can get by putting in, just a JPEG or whatever, I had not yet seen examples where it has taken a step further. And this is where, okay, if you think the still images are disturbing, then this is where it's just downright kind of going to make you, it's just kind of another level. So just a warning, if you don't want to see psychedelic, weird computer images or sort of digital acid trip type stuff, then maybe you should turn this off, because I'm showing this for educational purposes. I'm not trying to glorify these things, but for the sake of this conversation, I think is a pertinent conversation. So there's your warning. Anyways, in the past I've talked about, in connection with this whole idea of pantheism, panpsychism, this increasingly popular in the West concept of, the universal mind, the cosmic consciousness, all that. This, of course, goes way back into Eastern philosophy, Eastern mysticism, and the occult. But of course, as those things are permeating our culture more and more and becoming more mainstream, a lot of people are coming, even in the realms of quote-unquote science. So pantheism, panpsychism, whatever you want to call it, the idea that everything has a certain level of consciousness, or everything is alive, really ties into this, right? Because when people have these transcendental experiences, whether through meditation or through drugs like DMT, this is a quote-unquote realization that people experience firsthand. The idea that everything is alive, everything is conscious, everything is, resonating at different frequencies, and that's kind of what makes up all of reality. It's this visible language, this code, whatever you want to call it. Terence McKenna, of course, that was a big concept that he was always talking about, the visible language, the visible code. Something that was allegedly evolved and devised by these DMT beings, these entities, which of course we know are demons operating in the spiritual realm. And when you have these sort of psychedelic experiences, you're seeing eyes and you're seeing unfolding geometric crystalline things that are just sort of defying description and defying comprehension. But this is what is so crazy with the increase of things like with computational power, with virtual reality, and with artificial intelligence, is all these things just keep kind of combining and progressing. Because it's pretty crazy, because I've talked in the past about this Mandelbrot set idea, which you find in a lot of New Age videos and materials. It's a very popular thing with people looking for visualizations to basically to meditate with. Is this computer animation of the Mandelbrot set, which just keeps going and going and going down into infinity with all these crazy patterns. And so it starts, the original was like a 2D, a two-dimensional animation, the Mandelbrot zoom, and then of course there are 3D now, like the Mandelbulb, or whatever people want to call them, a three-dimensional sort of Mandelbrot, where you can, it's like, these constantly morphing and evolving alien worlds. And again, it's something that I think appeals to people for its sort of meditative qualities. And this hurts your eyes, I feel you. But what's even crazier now is that now there are things where they're combining this Google Deep Dream AI technology thing and sort of infusing it with the Mandelbrot 3D animations, and or 2D animations, either one, but now you have a Mandelbrot Deep Dream, just insanity. And the reason that I think this is significant is because if they can do this right now, right? This is stuff that the computer can just kind of spit out, stuff that like the human mind could, like if you were trying to paint this, it would sort of just, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. All these morphing faces and eyes, and again, you end up. I found this one video where it's just this endless zoom and all this trippy stuff. You know, all these faces bleeding into faces, and then, you know, it's like a scene, and there's people and animals, and then eventually they get to the quote unquote, like the end, where it's just all these eyes staring at you, and it definitely has this pantheistic, New Age message. Of course, that's why they made the video. You know, so it really is perpetuating the same New Age doctrines and the same pantheistic monism. It's all. And so once again, we see this whole idea of technology. It's like never far away. They just kind of go hand in hand. All the technology and the AI, the Internet of Everything, the idea of uploading your consciousness. That's where it gets really scary. So if they can create these kind of animations now, or even overlay them onto real footage, this is what's really trippy. Like here's one of a supermarket, and you have all this Google Deep Dream imagery sort of overlaid on people shopping. Somebody for fun has made ones of like Donald Trump that are kind of funny, but also disturbing. But when you really think about what people like Ben Goertzel and so many other people are, you know, and Ray Kurzweil and all these guys they're serious about this whole dream of uploading your consciousness or linking yourself to the Internet of Everything and infusing, instead of having to wear Google glasses or contact lenses or whatever, just having it directly spliced into your brain with a chip or neural lace or whatever else, to where you are jacked into the Internet all the time in this immersive sort of crazy augmented reality kind of way. This is the kind of, can you imagine? When I saw this supermarket one, I was just like, it was horrifying when I was thinking about, can you imagine being at the mercy of this AI hive mind internet interface and not being able to even turn it off? I mean, I've never done DMT, but I have done LSD, and one of the most frightening things was like being in the middle of a hours-long trip and being very aware that there were spiritual entities all around me. I didn't engage with any directly, but I could definitely feel them and knew they were real, and it was pretty terrifying. But you're in it, man. You can't just like jump out. You can't just like sober yourself up in 5 minutes. It has to kind of run its course, and DMT is way, way stronger. So basically the whole thing I'm getting at with kind of examining like parallel of the DMT drug, ayahuasca, whatever, you know, the drug experience, that's one route. You have rituals and meditation, that's another route. And so for the rest, as this pantheistic monistic belief system becomes more and more mainstream, I definitely see how technology and VR, you know, the VR route becomes this third route that people can increasingly, we already are seeing it. I mean, YouTube is full of videos where people are it's just visuals and animations to stare at and help you achieve an altered state of consciousness. It's very disturbing. And I definitely don't want to contribute to that with my channel. I know I'm watching a lot of this stuff, not a lot, but it's enough to where it's to know how prevalent it is, but you know, having to be careful because I'm not trying to point people to this stuff. I'm trying to keep it educational, honestly, so we can be aware of what is happening and what the spiritual implications are. But I don't, so this is, as disturbing as this is, I don't think this is, I mean, it's not quite the same as being in it. You know, you can turn your head away from the screen, you can turn it off, you can pause. But if it's in your head, whether it's like physiological, like as a chemical in your body that has to work itself through your system, or whether it's theoretically some sort of technological neural link, you know, it's just the whole idea of everything being alive, everything having the eyes, everything having these little spirits that just live in every dang little thing. This is, you know, what a lot of ancient shamanic cultures that we now refer to as like spiritism, where there's spirits in the rocks and the trees and the sky and the forest and the animals, you know. It's kind of what it's representing in this weird digital acid trippy kind of way. So hopefully that makes sense. Thank you to Casey for making this connection. And indeed, yeah, Alex Gray, you know, was interesting because he did the artwork for a lot of the Tool videos and stuff, and he talks about having Tool fans come to his little gallery called the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, or COSM, which is kind of an interesting name on the heels of my last video talking about cosmism. So COSM is like the shorthand of his Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, and those quote-unquote sacred mirrors are paintings that he has done, which are, on one level, they are just still images, depictions of DMT trips that he's had, and almost all of you have probably seen at least a few of his paintings if you've been on the internet for very long. If you've had any experience with the New Age spirituality of any sort, then you're undoubtedly familiar with Alex Gray's work, if not the man himself. I know he was featured in the documentary DMT, The Spirit Molecule, and so much more, but there was somewhere where he specifically explains how in his Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, how these different paintings are essentially, they're like mirrors or windows that are made to sort of function like a mandala, right? Where you're looking at this, especially if you're looking at it when you're on some sort of psychotropic drug or in some form of altered state of consciousness, and you can look at this and it really does function like a portal or a doorway to where you go into the painting, into this realm. And that's why, I mean, if that can function, you know, if these paintings that are just flat, static, two-dimensional paintings can serve that function hanging on a wall, then how much more so could it be when you're plugging yourself into a VR experience with the help of a little bit of a psychotropic drug or you know, whatever type of substances or anything. So all these things kind of working together to get you this transcendent experience, which is absolutely a crucial part of monism and pantheism, right? Because once they have that transcendent experience, people become convinced that there is this deeper spiritual reality that they are now just kind of curious about, and then they turn to occult teachings and doctrines and in mystical belief systems to try and explain that experience that just kind of defies all comprehension. And that it's inevitable. Like anyone who gets into the drug culture, into psychedelics and all that, it inevitably leads people to mysticism and the occult. That's just how it's designed to work. Same thing with quote unquote UFO abductions and UFO experiences, because it's really just a different form of the same thing. Even when you listen to certain DMT experiences, they'll even talk about like laying on a table and having these beings like inspecting them, and sometimes they think it's scary and sometimes they don't, but it's essentially the same. It's almost like the same description of the people that find themselves on a quote unquote ship or in a room, but maybe all the funky visuals are different, whatever. But I think the whole thing of what's interesting about comparing different spiritual or paranormal metaphysical experiences with the idea of a VR it's kind of instructive with like the VR analogy, because I really do think that's essentially what is actually happening, how it really works in the spiritual realm, where it really is like a VR experience, just without the wires, if that makes sense. They are in a sense using a type of technology, whether it's having to do with the weird mechanics of these higher dimensions that they are able to manipulate in ways that obviously it's like you're a fish out of water. You're completely out of your element. God did not design us to go into those realms. And that's why they're always trying to get us to go there one way or another. And so I feel like this really is sort of, we're getting frighteningly close to the stage where then that can be more and more and more people can be introduced to various forms of psychedelic and transcendent experience through technology, through VR. And definitely something that I think we need to have more and more discernment and just to be praying against this, and to be just to be ready to engage with and share with people that you know and your families and friends and people you meet wherever, just to have meaningful discussions with and help other people not get sucked into this or not become deceived by this wave of occult thinking that is just capturing the entire human race. I mean, we are just, it's like we're going over the cliff, man, in terms of spiritual deception. And I think most of you already know that. That's nothing new, but that's why we're talking about all this stuff, is because it's not just some tiny, fringy, weird thing anymore. This is becoming the norm. This is becoming the dominant belief, spiritual belief system. So that's why people need Jesus more than ever. So thanks for listening. Thank you, Casey. Talk to you guys later.
Sun, these tangled webs that you have spun were carelessly designed and overdone. You spoke of love and you spoke of truth and pushed them both away from you. Oh, never mind.
Well, hello. I know I cover a lot of topics that are, even for a channel that gets into things like flat earth and cosmology and conspiracies and all that, but and I know sometimes I even include visuals that some people find questionable or even offensive or just disturbing, and if I've already been pushing the bar in that regard, then this video might just push it farther than ever before. But I don't know how else to do it because it's all about visuals on this one. So a friend of the channel, I hate saying that though, just a friend, Casey, recently, I'm sure you just thought I forgot.
Because I'm in some kind of dome place, and the impression, don't ask me why, but the impression is of being underground, even though it's a huge vaulted space and highly colored. And then, but what is, of course, riveting my attention are these beings. And they're small, and they're like, I've described them as machine elves. They seem partially machine-like and partially elf-like. Well, the first impression is of the sound of cellophane being crumpled. That crackling sound as if someone had just taken a bread wrapper. Yeah. Crackle that cellophane for us. It sounds like your body has just been wadded up and thrown into a corner, and now you're a radio signal, approximately 4 light seconds in diameter, spreading out through an alien universe. And the next impression is of a cheer. It's hurrah, welcome, welcome. And it's them, and they're waiting, and they can hardly wait. Just before you do DMT, there's this funny kind of impression in the room, almost as though there is backwash from the event about to happen. You're caught in the psychic field of this event, and everything is moving faster and faster. This is like the Q phenomenon, and then you take the hit, and it's building up in your body, and your heart is pounding and everything, and then you break through to this place. And what it's like is, the first impression is of, I mean, there's a moment when they're not on me, just a moment, and then they say, "You're here, we're glad to see you, why did you stay away so long?" And then they come toward me, and the main thing for me in the DMT thing is to struggle not to go into shock of wonder, basically. I mean, because there is a tendency, a strong tendency, and for the first few trips, I couldn't conquer it. I was a victim of it. I mean, I just go into this. You know, and I would say, you know, heart, okay. Breathing, okay. But I'm looking, and I can't believe my eyes.